All right. Well, yeah, first, thank you so much for coming today to hear about this. It's really a blessing to share with you all about the work we're going to be doing here. I'm honored to have you have taken the time to do that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Hughes. I am the founder of House Beautiful, and along with a board of 6 other directors, Pastor Michael being one of them. And a little bit about my ministry experience and what led me to this place where we wanted to start this. I grew up in central Wisconsin, just south of Stevens Point. I married my high school sweetheart, Lynette, who is around here somewhere now. I don't know where she went at the moment. We have 6 children now, and they're around here as well, serving and things, helping out. We'll show a picture there. We both attended UW Stevens Point. Later in my college career, I sensed the Lord's call to ministry and ended up starting to going on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship to minister to college students. And I worked with traditional, non-traditional, international students for nearly 10 years on a variety of types of campuses: technical college, 2-year, 4-year. And then I ministered to InterVarsity staff. I was the area director the last 3 years I was with them. The Lord did a ton of work through that. It was a huge blessing. I earned my MA during that time in Christian Studies at Crown College up in Minneapolis, and then went on to do some more work toward an MDiv. Didn't end up finishing the MDiv then, because then the Lord called us down to South Carolina. We were in the upstate near the mountains, where we were running a Christian study center for college students, mostly graduate level college students. At that point, we were doing discipleship with them. We were running programs for professors and pastors that just went in depth about a lot of different types of theology. I was with a group called the Davenant Institute, and it was that was a really fruitful time as well. Then I began a THM seminary program with GPTS down in Greenville. I'm doing a historic study on the doctrine of God's adoption of us as His children, and looking at how that doctrine has emerged and developed and then came out on its own in the Westminster Confession of Faith. I'm going to be working on finishing that up and the requirements for licensure and ordination in the PCA here in the coming year or two, and then, like I said, we were brought back here. We were called back here to kind of our home, Wisconsin, near family and things, through a variety of circumstances, and we wanted to invest in the church here in the Midwest and see pastors, missionaries, and their families be healthy and ready for the work, to avoid burnout, to pursue health and longevity in ministry, and to be thriving in their ministry, as well as in their personal and family life. Those things are all kind of connected, and if their spiritual health is not well, they're not going to be able to minister to others well. And so the vision for House Beautiful is to see sustainable and faithful, lifelong Christian service by pastors, missionaries, and their families. We really desire to see them, along with their families, being refreshed, equipped, and strengthened to serve the church as they are called, to the glory of God and for the good of His kingdom. We want to, our kind of mission is to serve and to encourage, equip, and inspire current and rising Christian leaders, their families, and their peers for the good of the church and to the glory of God. So the Lord knows what each of these ministry families that stay with us are in need of, and it's our desire to provide this space that's got resources available, to have fellowship, things that will facilitate this provision. We'll do a survey prior to their stay with us to kind of get a sense of what are the ways that the things that you need right now in your ministry and the moment of ministry you're experiencing. Some are going to come discouraged. Some are going to come really on a high. There's lots of things going well. Others are going to have issues going on in their family or health issues, or they all come bearing these different kinds of burdens and joys. And sometimes also the joys may not be easy to see, and it takes somebody saying, hey, look at the good things that are going on in your ministry, somebody from outside of the circumstances to help encourage them in those moments. So we really look forward to just being an encouragement, to equip them, to disciple as appropriate, to stand side by side with them as fellow servants of our God, so that they can go back and serve the people that they're serving in a really state of wellness and ready to go with what the Lord's got for them. So the need is great. A little bit about a kind of part of our impetus for this is just that in March of 2022, Barna Research said that they concluded that 42% of Protestant pastors had considered leaving the ministry, and of those under age 45, 46% of them considered leaving the ministry. So it's kind of a problem across the board, but even maybe a little bit more of a problem for those that are younger pastors earlier on in the ministry. The things that they listed for reasons they were considering leaving the ministry were the immense stress of the job, feeling lonely and isolated, current political divisions, or being unhappy with the effect the role has on their family. So those were kind of the top reasons, and we just want to seek to be a place for respite from these things and to help them identify and face the causes of those things in their ministry so that they can then work toward solutions that will help them have a sustainable and long-term service rather than dropping off or giving up and leaving the ministry. So what is a retreat and study center? Retreat, this is going to be primarily on the retreat side, but there's sabbaticals and things like that where it's sometimes helpful for a space to come study, or someone might be working on a degree and want to have a space to write and have quiet. So a retreat is a forced or strategic withdrawal from action or battle. The act of withdrawing as into safety or seclusion, a place of refuge, a place of a period of retirement from normal routine for spiritual exercises. This is going to be probably the primary focus, like I said, for us, just giving them a space. They're out on the front lines, so to speak, of the spiritual warfare that's going on in our world, and for them to have a time in just where they can reflect, they can meet the Lord, they can pray, they can connect with one another as a family. That's going to be time that is really strategic for them to be ready for what is ahead in their ministry and in their families. Study, the act of applying oneself to the acquisition of knowledge or wisdom through reading, investigation, reflection, and or practice, to think deeply, reflect, or consider. A room in a house or a building set apart for reading, writing, or the like, or in case of a study center, a whole property dedicated to this end. So, combining all of this, we want to be a place for prayer, discipleship, learning, contemplation, restoration, discernment, equipping, preparation, reflection, and then drawing near to the Lord. So we aim to provide individuals or ministry teams with that opportunity and the means by which they can be refreshed and made ready for the work of faithful life and ministry in the vocations that the Lord's called them to. I want to talk a little bit about why House Beautiful, and I think this really says a lot about our heart in doing this. John Bunyan's work, Pilgrim's Progress, has been continuously in print since it was first published in 1678. It's sold over 100,000 copies in his lifetime, which is an incredible feat at the time. And until the mid-1900s, it was second place for the book that had sold the most copies, the Bible being the first. And so it's a book awash with scripture, and it really offers this through these allegories, pictures that are simple yet profound insights into the path that all Christians must walk as a pilgrim in this world as we journey to our eternal home. And it really has encouraged and strengthened believers throughout the past 3.5 centuries. It's been it's really helpful insight for all believers. If you haven't read it, you should definitely read it. It's really just a great work, and it just provides a lot of particularly poignant wisdom and encouragement, I think, for pastors and those that are in ministry and their families as well. So that's the reason behind the name for House Beautiful Retreats. I'll tell you a little bit about where exactly it comes from. So in Pilgrim's Progress, Christian arrives at the house or Palace Beautiful after ascending the hill called Difficulty. He arrives late and after dark because after initially ascending the hill, he had to descend again and backtrack to this arbor that was halfway up the hill where he had fallen asleep while he was resting. The arbor had been placed there by the Lord for the relief of pilgrims ascending the hill. Another picture of his grace, just as House Beautiful, which is at the top of the hill, is there for the relief and preparation of pilgrims. An even greater grace. So he realized when he awoke that he, in his haste to finish climbing the hill, he had left his scroll that he had been given when his burden was removed from his back at the cross, a scroll by which he was comforted as he read from it, and which he was directed to show at the end of his journey when he reached the eternal city, to have his entrance into the eternal city. Often in the midst of difficulty, we need assurance from our Lord that we are kept by him, and it's no accident that Bunyan used this analogy and this picture of hill difficulty where as an opportunity to show that that's where he lost some of his assurance and he needed to regain that. Pastors like Martin Lloyd-Jones, Charles Spurgeon, Martin Luther, and countless other pastors and ministers of the gospel throughout church history have experienced these seasons of difficulty and discouragement and despair even in their ministries, and all the way to depression. And they could have all related to Christians' predicament in this circumstance, and most pastors today can as well at some point in their ministry. So after recovering his scroll and hurriedly reascending the hill, it began to get dark, and he reached the top. He encountered these lions that were on either side of the path. They had frightened some guys that he had seen before that, timorous and mistrust, and they had turned back and left the way of life. They had not continued on the journey. And at the encouragement of the porter that was on the other side by House Beautiful, he told them to come ahead to the house, that they couldn't reach him if he kept the center of the path. And so he went through and he made it without the lions attacking. They were chained on the sides where they couldn't reach the middle of the path. And then in House Beautiful, he spends time with discretion, piety, prudence, and charity while he was there. And through this, he's encouraged, he's equipped, he's strengthened for this journey ahead. Christian's time at House Beautiful provided several means that helped him prepare for the rest of his journey to the celestial city, and many challenges and trials that he was going to face that lay ahead on his path. The need for conversation with discretion, piety, prudence, and charity is never outgrown by the most mature believers in this lifetime. We need continued growth and preparation to finish this pilgrimage well, and it's critical for the pastor especially, as much as it is, I guess, for the new believer, because if anything, it's even greater because they've got this burden of responsibility to shepherd those that are entrusted to their care, and one cannot give what one has first not received. So I'm going to share a few of the things that Christian was called to do and provided with during his stay at House Beautiful, and which we pray will also be true of House Beautiful retreats as the Lord would use it in the lives of those who stay with us. The first thing is he was called to remember. He's called to look back on where he had been, to see how the Lord had first called him, to recall the joys and sorrows of his journey so far. He inquired of how he came to undertake the pilgrim's life, how he came to his conversion. He gave pause to reflect on the grace of the Lord that had brought him safe thus far, and how he had relieved him of his burden by his death on the cross, and then how he had given him his word and the Spirit to guide him. Christian was also encouraged to give thought to the pain that he felt for those that he had to leave behind. His wife and children were included in that, which then later on in the second half of the book, they do undertake the pilgrim's life and follow him onto the celestial city. But by looking back, he was strengthened in his trust to the Lord. He'd seen his faithfulness, and that he had this renewed trust that he who did not spare his own son would not leave him alone. and that he would resolve the sorrows that remained and heal the scars that were left by these trials. Second, he was given the opportunity to rejoice, to consider the things that the Lord had done, to be strengthened by these good gifts that God has given for our comfort and enjoyment. He had a wonderful supper of delicious food. He had wonderful fellowship and just directing praise and glory to the Lord and the giver of it all. So those were like foretastes of the joy that was to come at the wedding supper of the Lamb, and meant to create a longing for the good that is coming for us at the end, and to turn our hearts to praise. He was able to reflect. Third, he and the others in the house reflected upon how the Lord worked through his servants throughout history. So he was remembering past saints from throughout history, like a kind of Hebrews 11 reflection. And it assured Christian of the Lord's provision of these things that he would need for this, and to provide the armor to stand as he would walk this path ahead. And he actually was given physical armor then before he left as well, representing the being fitted with the armor of God. So he was able to be ready oneself for the path ahead, the calling ahead, to set his eyes on the long-term goal of dwelling with God and beholding his glory and enjoying the Lord and his goodness forever. And then he was strengthened through that to press on in that upward call that is his in Christ Jesus. And then finally, he was his wife and his kids were able to follow later on. They chose to undertake the pilgrim's life later on after they had further pondered his witness to them earlier on in the book. And they stayed at Palace Beautiful and were called to catechism of the children, like learning the truths, reciting the truths the scripture gives, and helping them know what it was so that they would be able to stand against lies and against the trials that they would walk, to discern the right path the Lord had willed for them, and to rightly know God as he reveals himself in his word, so that they could love and worship him properly and to a greater degree. And then finally, reconnection. I think, it's not as much illustrated directly in the book here, but the picture of his family following later, where they would then ultimately reconnect in heaven. But reconnection here for families is so crucial, especially families in ministries. Spouses need time to reconnect. Families need time to spend time mending relationships potentially, or to heal and process life together, to give space to make sweet memories and opportunities to recharge relational bank accounts that have been exhausted through busy seasons of ministry and life. So above all, we want to provide a place for them to reconnect with the Lord and Savior, the Lord of Psalm 23 and the beauty of his creation, to rely upon him to restore their souls in the relative stillness of open space out there where he speaks and we listen to his soothing word. So reconnection with our Lord and others is greatly aided by disconnection from ministry stressors, from email, from news feeds. And I think it all happens best in a place where God's creation is, the beauty of his creation provides this serenity and peace and opportunity where the distractions and worries of life are just not as imminent. So, and this follows Christ's example as well, ultimately. I think every pastor needs to follow Christ's example of going to places remote and quiet to meet with the Lord, to pray and to listen and to reflect upon his will. So these things all bring me to one aspect of House Beautiful retreats that I think will uniquely serve pastors and missionaries, and that's our plan to host whole families. Most of the places that we've found that host pastors for these kinds of retreats don't host whole families typically, and that's something that, as a father of 6 and have had 15 years of busy ministry, with some seasons really, really busy and others maybe not quite as busy, but just time to get away as a family and have that space to reconnect and invest in one another is really crucial. So, and you all have heard, the stereotype of pastors' kids. Too often they leave the faith, they rebel, they don't continue to follow the Lord, unfortunately. And in many cases, that's because dad was too busy with ministry to tend and invest in those sheep that he's first called to, his children and his spouse. So this kind of regular retreat is vital, I think, for ministry, family longevity in ministry, and the health of the whole family and their relationships with one another and with the Lord. And I think another aspect of pastors being enabled to do this is that obviously their elders and their congregation need to be supportive of this kind of thing too. And I think that's really crucial because if a pastor's church can't survive a week without him, then something really should change in the church too, because it's relying too much on him, not enough on other men being raised up around him to be elders, deacons, support that way. And they may also need to learn to rely a little bit more too on the Lord rather than on the pastor only. Moses was told by Jethro in Exodus 18, "Why do you sit alone to judge disputes between the people from morning to evening? What you're doing is not good. You and the people alone will certainly wear yourselves out, for this thing is too heavy for you. Look for able men from among all the people who fear God and are trustworthy." We see the same pattern in the New Testament church too, where Paul and the apostles appoint elders in all the churches that they go to and they plant. We're not meant to walk that path alone, so there needs to be support there. And none of you should want the ministry of the church to rise or fall on your pastor. That said, on the same time, it's also true on the flip side that the pastor is really crucial and is important in the church and has a central role in the purposes of God in building the church through his shepherding and through his through his faithfulness. And if he's not healthy, if he's not spiritually healthy or physically healthy or doing well, he's not going to be able to minister as effectively to the church, and the whole church will feel that and suffer. So another function of the retreats that we want to host is kind of to be an annual or a semi-annual wellness checkup for ministry leaders. So kind of like an annual health checkup, it's an opportunity for ministry leaders to evaluate the spiritual aches and pains that they're experiencing, to discern the causes so that they might make wise changes to improve their health and longevity in ministry. This will benefit their family and the people that they're serving in the church, the congregation. They can lead out of a place of wellness and strength in these areas of their own life and leadership and continue to grow so that they might then pass on those things that they're growing in as well. These 6 things I think are really good things for every Christian to consider of their own spiritual health, and they kind of interact and overlap with one another a lot. But spiritual health, so their own relationship with the Lord in daily communion. You wouldn't believe how many people in ministry that I've met that struggle to do their daily, time with the Lord personally, especially, not just studying for your sermon, not just prepping for that next meeting with a congregant, those kinds of things. But if your own spiritual health is not well, you won't have things to give. Mental, muscle, and thought life. Are you yourself continuing to grow, think, read, spend time? What are you spending time thinking about? Philippians 4, think on these things, what is good, true, all of those things. Physical health, often this can be an area that gets neglected when a pastor spends a good amount of time sitting, studying, not super active a lot of the time, and that's, or sleep, not sleeping from whatever burdens and weights are on them even, when somebody's, there's struggles or challenges in the congregation that are weighing on them. Same with the emotional health, so having a sustainable pace of life. Schedule management is not all, something that you may need to grow in, is maybe one thing to consider. Forgiveness, if there's congregants that have been hard to deal with and there's just stuff between you that you need to maybe forgive and let go. Processing or healing from other difficult ministry experiences, even just some tragedy happening in the church or something that you've had to deal with. And just evaluating their stressors in their life. And then relational health, proper boundaries, things that, habits that help grow their relationships with their family, with others in the church, giving the family priority and making sure you're shepherding them well and have good relationships with your kids and with your spouse. Personal character growth. Are you addressing personal weaknesses or flaws? We all have those, right? We all have places we need to grow. And so do you have, as a pastor, do you have anyone that you can go to that you can say, here's an area I'm really struggling to grow in. Can you help me work through this? I know that's sometimes hard in the congregation itself to have those relationships, but to maybe then be able to come to a place like this and open up about some of those things that you don't maybe have anybody else to talk to, and then talk about how do I find somebody that I can do that with back home, and just having accountability in things. Pastors that aren't able to be accountable to others that are like a lone ranger out there. It's just not a healthy situation for them. So trying to help encourage them in that way to have people around them that they can connect with on those areas. So that's the kind of things that we're gonna help pastors consider. Try to encourage them so that they can then set themselves up for better longevity in ministry through those things. Sometimes these kinds of health checkups reveal larger things that require greater than what can be offered at a 3 to 7 day retreat. So we're working on compiling a list of different counselors and other resources that might be helpful for if there's something that takes longer or greater care than we can offer at the House Beautiful retreats. One can't accomplish all of these things we've talked about, obviously, in these past 2 slides in a short retreat. So, nor do all families need everything equally. So, like I said, we want to do a survey ahead of time to kind of get a sense of what is going to be most helpful, what is most needed, what are you going through right now in ministry that might be helpful for you to process, those kinds of things. And then we'll be able to kind of tailor their needs. We'll offer childcare so that spouses can get away together for a time, things like that. So, but we do hope it to be more than just a simple Airbnb where they can just get away. For the most part, we'll have a little bit of, at least a little bit of engagement to help them process things that are going on so that we can encourage them along on the path that they're on and in the ministry that they're called to. So, a little bit about the property itself now. So the location and vision. Through an amazing story of God's provision and grace, the Lord provided for our family to purchase a property here ourselves personally that would be able to host House Beautiful, so that the ministry didn't have to raise all the funds to do that. It's 45 acres. It's going to offer a peaceful place for rest and reflection, space for long walks and contemplation, quiet places by a stream to enjoy listening to the water run through, and places on the hillsides to view the valley and the surrounding countryside. There'll be opportunity to participate in gardening if that's a restful or life-giving activity to anyone staying with us. There'll be arbors, pavilions, hiking trails, fire rings, all of those kinds of things, and a large mowed green for outdoor activity and things. There's going to be a welcome center and a common space that is kind of more or less an Amish-built cabin, set up like a large living room kind of with some library of resources. I've got some resources here just as an example of some of the kinds of books that I've been collecting for that. There'll be a coffee bar in there that people can kind of come connect, come meet with me, things like that. And that way there'll be that space. And then there will be initially our goal is two houses that are more or less tiny houses, like the park model RV houses. And I'll show you a picture of those in a minute. We'll seek to host a family in each of those. There's a lot of opportunity nearby. So we're by the Sparta Elroy Trail, right across the street from it, half a mile from Trail Tunnel 2, if you're familiar with that area at all, between Norwalk and Wilton. like I said, a stream on the property, the hillsides and the valley there to enjoy. It's just up the road from things like Ontario, where there's the Kickapoo River and, you know, those activities of like floating down the river, or kayaking, canoeing, trout fishing, that kind of stuff. There's Cashton with all the Amish stores and the cheese and dairy and things like that down that way, and various restaurants available. You know, it's only a 15-minute drive to Sparta, or not much more than that to Tacoma and Cashton, and so lots of opportunity there for families to enjoy the space as well, location-wise. Here's a picture of the houses that we're looking at getting. It's going to be big enough to fit to accommodate a large family. So the one bedroom has a queen size bed, the main one, and then a twin on those are on the main floor. It's got a full kitchen and bathroom with a shower, and a nice size living room with well lit area with all the windows. And so they're going to be really a great setup for that. And the loft has space for 4 twin mattresses up there, so for all kids that want to crash up in the loft there. And then the sofa also folds out as another bed, so if you have a bigger family like mine, we can have kids sleeping all over in the different places. So. Yeah, we're gonna add, I guess, share a little bit about. We're gonna add outdoor decks to them at some point, probably as well. You know, space for morning coffee or devotions, or just enjoying out on rocking on the porch and listening to the creation and things. So a little bit about our timeline and our related fundraising needs. So the total need for getting everything set up, common area, 2 houses, so we can host 2 families at a time, and then all the related driveways, septic, things like that, $275,000. So we have a $75,000 match currently for the first $75,000 to be matched, and currently we're approaching that 1/3 of the total being raised at this point. So we've already started step 1, which is clearing the site, installing driveways, the pads for the 2 houses, the common space, grading the area in the middle and getting grass planted. That stuff is all going to be done tomorrow, that first part, and then we'll be working on getting the electrical main set up and getting the well tested. We've had the perk test already done, and so that's approved and everything. So a lot of the first step is ready to go. Once we reach $115,000 raised, we'll be able to run electrical and water lines to those sites where the homes are going to be, get the septic system installed, and purchase the common space and start getting that all set up and ready to go. At $195,000, the first house can be purchased, and it's about 4 to 6 weeks from order to delivery, so we can begin hosting once that first home is set, and then second house at the 275 mark. So that's a little bit about that total goal. And then additionally, we're hoping to offer this for free to pastors. We're modeling our ministry a lot after a place called Be Still Retreats that's in central Wisconsin that does this with these types of houses as well. But they only host pastors and spouses, so we hope to kind of serve whole families and complement what they're doing. They're booked out all the time anyway, so we'll probably have a lot of people come from that would go there otherwise too. And then, so $2,600 a month in ongoing and recurring gifts would allow us to offer those stays for entirely for free. So if we have 2 families staying a week, it'll be 8 per month, so it averages out to about $325 a week for a stay per family. So that would be that $2,600. That covers all the utilities, the cleaning and turnover stuff, and any of the supplies. We're gonna have like little welcome baskets and things for them to help them with their stay as well and stuff. So and I currently, just I guess to give back up a little bit, I've been working in ministry for a long time, and so many of my supporters continue to support us into this new work. So we basically have the kind of ongoing funding we need for me to be able to do it full time. So that's why this is the lower amount that we'll be able to raise for that. Yeah. So a little bit about how to give, I guess, quick. We are, our website is housebeautifulretreats.org. You can give online there, click on donate at the top right, or that's our physical address for House Beautiful. It's a post office box right now. And you can send a check that's written out to House Beautiful Retreats that way. How to help additionally get, right now you could sign up for our prayer updates. I'm gonna put one of these pieces of paper back there, and you guys could sign up for our prayer updates if you don't get them, and help spread the word, share about what we're doing. I'm gonna be posting the video kind of summary of this on YouTube and then we have a Facebook page you can follow and stuff like that to keep updated on when things get set up. Share it with others if you have referrals, people that might be interested in hearing, pastors that might benefit from coming out to join us at times. That would be great. There will be volunteer opportunities as we get started getting trails made and doing more of the landscaping and setup and stuff like that. So I'll be kind of letting people know about those opportunities via the prayer letter and Facebook as well. So yeah, I guess that's the main gist of it. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I'll open it up for questions at this time, I guess, if there are any questions about what I've shared about it. So.
I guess, are you opening this up to people just in Wisconsin, and then like, is it pretty broad in terms of like, as far as availability, it's open to any pastors or ministry?
Good question. So no, we're broadly opening it up to anyone who serves as a pastor or missionary from pretty much anywhere. I imagine we'll mostly get people from this area and the broader Midwest, but we're definitely open to hosting missionaries or pastors from other places. And we have a statement of faith that is, we're non-denominational, so we're not PCA specific. Even though we attend the PCA here, we're just broadly evangelical conservative. So you read our statement of faith, we're going to have an application. The way our nonprofit attorney recommended it was to do an application to become a member essentially of House Beautiful Retreats, and once that's accepted, then you can book stays with us. So, and you have to agree to our statement of faith for that. So that kind of narrows the, we're not going to end up with a very liberal Christian, loosely Christian, pastor wanting to stay with us and stuff. So.
That was my question too, because I was curious how many international students you used to have at Devon House, and if you expected that here, because even in the PCA with MTW and stuff, we have a lot of associated, connected ministry people in other countries that could use a free place to connect with USA folks, especially with the use of a library and other resources like that. And did I hear you intimate that you won't have to lock up smart units if you don't supply wireless?
Oh, yeah, we're not, we're probably, I don't think we're gonna do Wi-Fi. We're still kind of a little bit trying to decide for sure, but I think we're gonna probably stay away from doing that because it's a nice quiet retreat then for, unplug for the time, so.
So you're trying to have it kind of be a study center as well, or is there gonna be like speakers that come and, speak on topics, or is it kind of just like, hey, we're just making it, we have resources available for you and you can kind of do your own thing?
Yeah, we're primarily going to be a space for retreats and
Right.
stuff. I imagine we'll have some special events here and there. You know, I would be definitely open to that if that's something that would have enough interest in the area. But yeah, we'll primarily be serving as a retreat space, a place for pastors and missionaries and their families to reconnect and be restored.
I guess one other question. I was curious how you plan to do things like food. Is it like something where people would be cooked for, and just open kitchen kind of thing, or?
Yeah, primarily they're cooking for themselves. They have a full kitchen in each of the houses, and you know, I think we'd be open to offering to, you know, if it bless them to cook a meal like for them, or come to our place to enjoy some fellowship or something like that. We're definitely open to that kind of thing if that's something they desire. So we'll probably put that on the survey if that's something that they would be interested in.
Yeah, just that, you know, one of the things Michael mentioned was, you know, being inspired in some ways by Be Still Retreat Center, which is in Plainfield. This is something that, you know, I've been to a handful of times anyway, but they do very similar, right? So you have the space is available to you, and so you can come and you can utilize it how you wish. So you've got a full kitchen, prepare your own food, that sort of thing. But it gives you that space to get away. And just to underline what he said about that, I mean, Be Still, we used to use it a lot with our churches here in Wisconsin, in our denomination, and we still do, but it's increasingly difficult because it is booked out like crazy. It's very hard to be able to go anymore because it's booked out so far in advance because there's so much demand for this sort of thing. And so the moment that there's a house on the ground ready to go, and there is a connection to Be Still through this, no doubt there's already going to be demand that's just waiting for something more to open up in that way. And that doesn't even include the opportunities that we have, you know, again, our hope. And I say ours, so I sit on the board. I'm not just Michael's pastor. I also, you know, am vested in this way, wanting this to succeed. But you know, there's so much great need, you know, here in the Cooley region and beyond. Many people come to Plainfield for Be Still from, I mean, hours and hours away. And so if you draw, you know, you just draw a circle 4 hours in every direction of, you know, Wilton, Norwalk, you're going to find people that are going to want to come and utilize this, and that it could benefit, especially if we are able to reach out to those pastors' wives, other ministries that we all know.
Yeah, and Be Still has been a great resource for us because I have a connection with the one who is the leader of Be Still, and he's shared a lot of things that'll help me not make the same mistakes with certain things with houses and stuff. You know, he says, "You don't do this, don't do that, but do these things." That's been really helpful for us to get set up well.
So you said you're at step one with the finances. How close are you to getting at least one house on
So
the grounds?
So like I said, we're kind of between here and here right now in terms of the dollar amount, and so, you know, at this amount we'll be able to get the common space set. I want to get that first, partly because that'll be where the main electric and everything comes from, and then and we're also just will have a space to meet with them then, and I can even start having people out then to show them and have meetings there that can come and walk the space and stuff, and then we'll, you know, each of those houses after that is, you know, so 195 is what we need to reach for the first one to be paid for. We don't want to take any loans out or anything to do this. We want to just buy them outright and be in a good spot there. So.
I think it's good to point out too, just, you know, looking at the finances, you see, you know, there is this initial push to get these things, and our hope is, you know, after, you know, raising the funds for these 2 houses, getting those established, we can go on to have more. I mean, the idea is to have several more than that. But this is a way to get started. But then after this initial push, you see that the upkeep for this kind of a work, especially because Michael brings so much of his support of people that have been backing him in ministry for many, many years, it's very doable. It's, it's just that initial lift, especially without any kind of going into debt or anything. But once that's established, it really is not a huge cost to upkeep. And especially as people are able to begin to use these things more and more and more, that really won't be hard to meet and to keep that going